Today's daf is daf Nun Gimel. We are going to begin Nun Beis Amud Beis by the Mishnah. The Mishnah is going to discuss halachas of if a person damages the nechasim of his friend, but it's in a hezek she'eni nikar, which means you don't actually see the hezek. So now the Mishnah starts off and says ha metami. If somebody is metami the payers of his friend, as the Rashi says, this is it belongs to a kohen, and this person now is metami the truma of his friend, who's a kohen. So it's a hezek, but it's a hezek she'eni nikar. Or beha medameya. What's medameya? Medameya means that he takes truma and he takes chulin of his friend and he mixes it together. So he caused his friend a loss because now a zar is not allowed to eat this because it has truma and chulin mixed together. So he has to sell it to a kohen for very, very cheap. So he caused them a damage. But again, in the actual physical item, it's a hezek she'eni nikar. Third example, v'ha menasich, or if let's say somebody, and we're going to see later in the Mishnah, in the Gemara, what exactly nisach means. So if somebody is menasich, he pours for nisach for avodah zarah. So it's a hezek she'eni nikar. So in all these cases, the halacha is bishegi. If it's done unintentionally, then potter is potter. B'mezid, but if it's done intentionally, then he's chayiv. So now the Gemara is going to focus on the last case. We said about menasich. What does menasich mean? Itmar was learned in machlekes amiroim with regard to the meaning of menasich. Rav says, what does it mean? Menasich mamish. It means that he actually takes wine and he pours it for avodah zarah. Shmuel says no. Menasich means me'ariv, that he mixes together. What does he mix? He mixes kosher wine with avodah zarah wine. So now that it's also to drink or have any benefit from it. Now the Gemara says, Manda Amar Ma'ariv, according to the opinion that it says. In other words, Shmuel, who says that what does Menasich mean? It means he mixed it. Why doesn't he want to say like Rav, that what does Nisach mean? That he mamishted avodah zarah. So Shmuel will tell you, Menasich, if it's like what Rav said that Menasich means, that he actually poured for avodah zarah, then you have another problem. You have the din, the famous din of, that if a person pours another wine as avodah zarah, he receives the greater punishment. So, as it's known that somebody who pours yayin nesach, so then he is chayiv misa. So the chayra, if it's like what Rav says that it means nisach mayim mamish, so it's nothing to do with hezek she'eni nikar. He has another issue, that is chayiv misa, so he would never pay for the damage. So the Gemara says, okay, and what about Rab? What's Rab going to say? So he says, he's going to learn like Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Mishas hagbohu dekana. When one pours another person's wine as avodah zarah, so at the time that he picks it up, he acquires the wine. And but he does not become chay misa until he actually pours the wine for avodah zarah. So since as we know, kamle b'dramine only applies if it's done simultaneously. Since the monetary the penalty takes effect first, so he has to pay for it as well for the hezek she'eni nikar. So the Gemara, and according to the Mandamar who says Rav, who says that it means menasich my time, why doesn't he want to learn like Shmuel that it means that he mixed it up? So Amalach, so Rav will tell you, me'ariv, if it's like the way that Shmuel is touching up, that it means me'ariv, so then hainu medameh, this is the same case as medameh, it's the same exact case. Why would the Mishnah repeat it again? So the Gemara says v'idach, and Shmuel, who holds that that it means ma'ariv. So the why don't you want to learn ariv from medamea? So he says knasahu, because in all these cases this is a knas that the chachamim gave by medamea. And we cannot learn out from one knas to another knas. So the Gemara says lamanda yalav knas miknas, and according to the one who holds that we do learn out knas from knas kol hani lamali. Why do I need to give all these cases? In other words, why does the Mishnah need to say all these cases of hezek she'eni nikar? Let the Mishnah only say one case, and I would understand that every hezek she'eni nikar is a knas midrabban. So the Gemara says like this: tzricha, I need to have all three cases. Why? If the Mishnah would only say the case of that a person's metame his friend's foods, so I would say eat truma. If it's referring to that he was metame truma of the kain, having minimum to come out of the garmi, I would say that the reason why the chachamim imposed the penalty is because he ruined the food entirely. Now, and if the if the guy actually was matam the chulin, mishum also the grim tum the chulin b'Eretz Yisrael. The din is you're not allowed to cause even chulin to be tamei in Eretz Yisrael. Ava medamea, but when it comes to medamea, just medamea, emaloi, I would say that in the case of the mixing of the truma, since he did not cause a hefsem meruba, because as we said before, like Rashi said, he could be sold for cheaper. So you would say that the chacham don't impose a penalty. Emaloi. Now, and if the Mishnah would only say medamea mishum d'shchich, because being medame it's more common. But medame the truma the leishchich, which is not common, I would say that the chacham don't impose the penalty of ma'asim which are not shchiach. Now, if the Mishnah would only say the case of medamea and not the third case, not nisachayayin, because because you can't impose, there's no application of the principle of kamle b'dramine, not in tameh, not in medamea. Ava menasich, but in the case of nisachayayin, the kim b'dramine, which you can have a scenario, you can apply the idea of kamle b'dramine, I would say that there's no takas chamim. Therefore, he learns like Rabbi Yirmiyah that he acquired the wine from the moment he lifted up, and he becomes chayim to pay for the fine before he became chayim misa for nisach yayin. Now the Gemara asks, according to the version of the father of Avin who taught on the Tisefta, that in the beginning, initially, the Chacham said that the penalty is a hezek shen and nikar is dafka by the case of Metame Menasech. And then Chazulemer Afa Medamea, and then they said also Medamea, also there's Takanas Chachamim of hezek shen and nikar, he has to pay for it. Kol Hani Lamli. Why do I need to have all three cases? So he says, if it only say Metame Mishum Deloi Kim Lebiramine, because Metame there's no din of Kam Lebiramine, Av Menasech, but Kim Lebiramine, which you could have a application of Kim Lebiramine, I would say that there's no takana. V'yashmina Menasech, if it only say the case of Menasech Mishum to come after the Gamri, because when the guy does Nisach Hayayin, he is being mafsid the entire. You can't have any enough from it. It's not entirely ruined because you could use it for fuel, you could use it to burn up feeding or giving to the animal. I would say that there's no fine imposed by the Chacham. If it only said that these two cases, Mishum to have some meruba, because it's a big loss. To have some mu, it's only a small minimal loss because he could sell it to the kain for much less money. I would say that there's no penalty over here. So therefore I need to have all three cases. Now the Mishnah says, we said before, if one unintentionally committed one of these offenses, either being metame a person's food or being metamea or nisachayayin, he's exempt from paying for the damage. Now, if he acted intentionally, the Mishnah said if it was again Amar Chizkiah, so if he did it unintentionally, the Mishnah says he's chayiv. So Amar Chizkiah said Dvar Teda, according to Teda, a person who commits a hezek shein nikar echad sheikik v'echad mezid, you should know is chayiv. My time because hezek shein nikar shmei hezek. According to Midei hezek shein nikar is considered a hezek, and one is chayiv for damage not only when the damage is evident, when he causes a damage at the item of his physical state, but also when the damage is not evident, when he causes his, let's say, a reduction of the value, when he renders it impure, as the Mishnah gave different cases. Now, umatam amru b'sheigig potter. So what's the reason why the Chacham said that if it was b'sheigig, he's potter? Why? Kidei sheidiyu is in order that one who caused the damage will inform the injured party about what happened. If a knas were imposed, even in a case where the person unintentionally damaged, then we'll be concerned that the guilty party might not report the damage, so to avoid the penalty. In such a situation, the injured party will not know what happened, as the damage is not evident, and he will eat truma b'tahara, b'tuma. So therefore, they said, b'shegig, don't impose the knas, in order that he will not be embarrassed to inform, or he doesn't want to pay the knas, so he'll inform the injured party. So if so, in the case of the mezid, also don't impose the knas. If Varteda hezek shein nikar shmei hezek, so the chayda midrabanan they should come along and say hezek shein nikar lo shmei hezek in order that they should do. So the Gemara says it doesn't make sense. Again, the Gemara says if his intention is to cause the guy damage, then you don't think he's going to inform him. If he doesn't tell the person, the other person will never know that he suffered the damage. So he will certainly inform what he did, and that his property is now subject to this isser. There's no concern that the injured party will eat this b'shegig, because the guy will inform him or make sure that he is known, that it's known. This is Chizki's opinion. Now, Rabbi Yechon says no. Hezek Sheni Nicker is potter. My time, because Hezek Sheni Nicker lishme Hezek. So why did the Chacham say that the Hezek Sheni Nicker is chayav midei daisa midrabanan b'mezid? He says so that each person should not go and actually make his friends Paris Tommy, and then the Imran is going to say, Potter, I am exempt from liability. So now the Gemara raises the objection on the opinion of Chizkiah. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Hakayin should pigel b'migdash, Hakayin who had pigel b'migdash. In other words, Hakayin who disqualified the offering through improper thoughts. In the base of Migdash, so now like this, Mizidin, if it was done on purpose, chayav, and he has to pay for it. Now, B'tana Allah, we learned on this Mishnah, why does he have to pay for it? Because of Tikkun HaElam. So that the Kohanim would not act in this manner towards people to whom they want to wish to cause, that they're just going to be mefagel the carbon, and the guy is done. So Tikkun HaElam is that he has to pay for it. Now, the Gemara says, now, if you're going to say that Midei Raisa Hezek Sheni Nicker is Shmei Hezek, so now the question is, it should have said that Midei Raisa Hezek Sheni Nicker Shmei Hezek, and Midrabanan, they came along and said, B'shegim, the guy is put them to Tikkun HaElam. So Elamai must be that Chizki is wrong, because according to Chizki, if they acted intentionally, they should be Chayim Midei Raisa for the damage they caused. Now Midrabanan, so the Cheda, you're saying there's no Tikkun HaElam over it. Mitzad Hezek Sheni Nicker Shmei Hezek Midei Raisa, and it should have said that B'shegig is put them to Tikkun HaElam. Where it says no, this is what it means to say. That's exactly what the Mishnah means to say. Now, Rabbi Elazar asked the Shaila based on what was taught. If a person performs a malacha with water that is mixed to use for ashes of the paraduma, which was used to purify people and objects that had tumah. So now, if a person does malacha with mechatos of paras chatos and with paras chatos, so pater midinei adam, b'chayim midinei shemayim, he's pater midinei adam, but he's chayim midinei shemayim. Now, and if he's correct that hezek sheni nicker is shmei hezek, so midinei adam l'an mechayev l'chayr, should be chayev even midinei adam. So the Gemara says, he asked the question and he answered the question. What are we talking about here? We're talking about We're talking about that he performed malacha with the paraduma, means that he placed it in a pen so that it would nurse from his mother, and it would incidentally also tadur should also thresh, meaning that his action is not defined as having to perform malacha with the paraduma. And that which is said that he performed malacha is mechatos, and that which he performed malacha with mechatos is shakal by mishkalos, that he weighed the weights of the water, which is not an actual malacha. Whereas Rabbi said that we know that somebody who weighs the weights, it is kosher. So when it says leikash is not a question. The Brisa is referring to a case where he weighs an object with the water itself, and therefore the water is puzzle. And Rabbi says that the water is kosher is referring to a case where he weighs an object against the water. So where it says begufon, if he weighs an object with the water itself, ma'isukovid behu, he's performed a real task with it. If it's a hezek sheni nicker is shmei hezek, then b'dinei adam should also be chayiv. Gemara says idividi connected. Rather, we're talking about that in both cases. He weighed an object against the water, and is not a question. The Brisa is referring to a case where the course of the weighing the object, his intention was diverted from guarding the water, and he was masech daiti, and the statement of Rav was referring to a case where his intention was not diverted, and therefore the water did not become puzzle. Masiv Rav Papa said, "Gozel matbeh v'nifsol." Here's another shot against Chizkiah. If one robbed another of a coin and afterwards the coin was rendered invalid by the government, or truma v'nitmis, if a person robbed another truma and it became tamei, or chametz, or a person robbed another person's chametz, and then Rav Lava Pesach, and then Pesach, then elapsed in it. So now, which is usher in each of these cases, then Imar Aloi, the robber can return to him and say to the robber, to the thing, that which is yours is before you. Since the robber returned the stolen item, he's not required to compensate the victim for the monetary loss, although the stolen item are currently of minimal or no value. Now, if you're correct, a hezek sheni nikar is shmei hezek, then you have another problem. This person is a gazlan, and he should be required to pay the full compensation for the damage. So it says tiyufta, rather this is a tiyufta to the opinion of Chizkiah, who held hezek sheni nikar is shmei hezek. Now the Gemara says, shall we say that this be'emes is a machlikas tanaim? Now, what does it say? Why? Because talking about Brisa, in all these cases, now, my lab, must be arguing over here. The Marsavar has a hezek. Rameir holds that a hezek shenikar is shmei hezek, and therefore in all these cases he is chayiv. Marsavar leish shmei hezek, and therefore he's going to make a difference between shaking and mezid. So Rav Nachman, kulam hezek shenikar leish shmei hezek. I can tell you that be'emes everybody holds a hezek shenikar leish shmei hezek. But here they're arguing in a case of, do they give a knas an unintentional due to intentional? Marsavar konser shake got to mezid. Rameir says that hezek sheni nikar shmei hezek, even if he acted, Shegi holds that Chachamim gave a knas for Shegi got to mezid. Myself they consider Shegi got to mezid, and the Chacham hold that, and Rabbi Yehuda holds that a person is chayiv only if he acted intentionally. He holds that they did not give a knas Shegi got to mezid. Okay, now Rami did a meir ad a meir. Where it says Rami did a meir ad a meir, Rami did a Rabbi Yehuda ad a Rabbi Yehuda. I can ask you a state of Rameir, the Meir, and Rabbi Yehuda. Why the Tanya? We learned in a Brisa, somebody who cooks on Shabbos, b'shegig. If he cooks it b'shegig, so then Yechel can eat the food. B'meizel Yechel the Rameir. So according to Rameir, a person is mavashal b'Shabbos b'shegig Yechel, b'meizel Yechel. Rabbi Yehuda this is not b'shegig Yechel matzah Shabbos. B'shegig eat a matzah Shabbos. B'meizel, however, when it comes to meizel Yechel, you can never eat it forever. Says, if it was acted unintentionally, what he cooked, maybe eat the matzah Shabbos, by others, however, not for him, however, if it was b'mezid, he cannot eat it not for himself and not for others. Now, kash the meir, kash the Rabbi Yehuda. It's a stira on the Rabbi Yehuda and the meir on the meir. So the answer said that the meir leikasher ki kones v'rabbanim diraisa leikones. There's no stira between the meir and the meir, because one can say like this: when the meir gave a knas of shegig is where the offender violated midrabbanan. He was matam midrabbanan, but diraisa leikones. But when he was mavashal b'Shabbos, which is also diraisa, he did not give a knas. The reason for this is that people treat Shabbos more seriously. There's no need to impose a knas for shegig. For shake. Now, v'ha-menasich de'iraisahu. So now we're asked, v'ha-menasich de'iraisahu, v'kokanas, but we know nisach hayayin is de'iraisa, and they gave a knas. So I said, mishum chumna d'aved zara, konas, because of the chumna d'aved zara, he gave a knas. And the Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda also is not a kasha. Ki konas b'drabanan, when they give a knas b'drabanan, de'iraisa konas. Like kasha. Ki loy konas, when he did not give a knas, is d'rabanan, b'de'iraisa konas. For the Gemara, v'ha-menasich de'iraisa v'loy konas, mishum chumna d'aved zara, midub d'ilumnei. Since it's severity is avodah zarah, people will avoid it on their own. Where it says, "Rami did Rabbi Meir ad Meir b'deiraisa." Rami did Rabbi Meir ad Meir b'deiraisa. And you can ask the chera contradiction between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Meir. Why? Because the time we learned the mission of Brisa. Somebody plants on Shabbos b'shegig yikayim. If a person plants on Shabbos, if it was unintentionally, he may keep the tree. But if it was done intentionally, yaker, he has to uproot the tree. And if he planted it during the shvis, bein b'shegig b'mezid yaker divid Meir. Sai, doesn't matter whether it's b'shegi b'mezid, he has to uproot it. These are the words of the Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says no. B'shvis b'shegi yikayim. If it was b'shvis, he could do it b'shegi yikayim. B'mezid, when it comes to mezid yaker, he has to uproot. B'shabbos b'shegi b'mezid. Now, so this seems to contradict the Meir's ruling in the previous mentioned brisa that one who unintentionally cooked on Shabbos is not penalized. So the Meir asked, "L'time meich," and according to your reasoning, you can ask a question. So both of the Shabbos and Shvis. What difference about Shabbos and Shvis? So the Gemara says, why do I say that Shabbos is so mainly Shvis? Because the Yidden count the years of the tree with regard to the Isser against eating Arla and with regard to Natravai. Therefore, if the tree was planted in Shvis, people will remember, and they might come to think planting a tree in Shvis is permitted. For this reason, Meir imposed a fine and required the tree to be uprooted. but they do not count Shabbos, as there's no significance to the day of the week on which the tree was planted. So therefore, no one remembers that the tree was planted on Shabbos. Another explanation, the Yidden are suspected for desecrating Shvis, but they're not suspected for being Mechal Shabbos. Therefore, the mayor imposed the penalty for Shegeg on Shvis, but he did not impose it on Shabbos. What does it mean, Davar Acher? And if you're going to say that Shabbos also, and if you're going to say that Yidden also count from Shabbos, and unless the tree is uprooted, people will remember that it was planted on Shabbos. Why is it time the 30th day before Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbos? If you planted the tree on that day, the time of the year when he planted it, counts for him as a full year. And if he did not plant it on Shabbos, but rather on the next day, the 29th of before Rosh Hashanah, it does not count for him as a full year. In such a case, people will remember that the tree was planted on Shabbos, and they might come to think that planting on a tree on Shabbos is permitted. The Yidden are suspected on Shvis, but not on Shabbos. Therefore, the mayor imposed the penalty for Shegeg on Shvis, but not on Shabbos. Also, Rabbi Yehuda is also not a question. Because in the place where Rabbi Yehuda was, they were more machmer by Shvis, and therefore there was no need to impose a penalty for Shegeg, although it was Dvar Torah. Why Dahud? Because it once happened there was a certain person who said to another to insult him, Dayer Bor Da Yorte. Convert, son of convert. In anger, the second person said to the first person, I don't eat a pair of shvis as you did. This indicates that pair of shvis was treated in that place as a very serious issue. Therefore, Rabbi Yehuda deemed it unnecessary to impose a penalty for its unintentional desecration.